Hey guys, before we get started, we just want to say thank you to Zeapon for sending us the Micro 3 Slider E700 for review. But we're not paid to say anything besides our own opinions, and Zeapon does not get to see this video before it is published. Let's get straight to the point. I just want to talk about some of the features that I really like about the Zeapon Micro 3 Slider compared to other sliders that we have used before. The first thing I want to talk about is these supporting rods, these supporting legs. I don't know if you can see it here, but I'll probably put it in a B-roll. These supporting rods, if I lift my tripod, which is super heavy right now, you can see that they are attached to the legs of the tripod. This way you can actually ensure that the slider is not going to tilt when your setup is going on the either end of the slider. Before, when we had other sliders, especially when the slider is long, when the setup is heavy and it's on one end of the slider, the entire slider will start tilting or even start to bend. So that is a really bad thing to happen. First, you don't want your setup to tip over and then drop to the floor and break your setup. And second, of course, it will ruin your shot if you are having like a bending action at the end of the slider. So these rods will put support onto both ends of the slider, and it will make sure that the slider is horizontal the whole time. So these supporting rods, absolutely amazing. They're adjustable in terms of height and angle, and it goes into the tripod mount at both ends of the slider. If you don't want to use these supporting rods, it's completely up to you. You can also attach two tripods or any kind of supporting legs at both ends of the slider. You can flip it upside down. You can mount it like vertically as well, as long as you have something that goes into the tripod mount. But I love using it like this. With my Manfrotto tripod, this is a quite heavy duty tripod for video purposes. You can see that it's super stable and solid because these are also metal as well. So there's no way, unless you purposely try to break it, it's really sturdy. And another really important point is, if you're going to use the Micro 3 slider, or basically any other sliders as well, is to have a really sturdy tripod. So don't ever use those plasticky, really thin, lightweight photo tripods, because they're not going to be able to support the weight of this thing. This is heavy itself. So if you use those flimsy, lightweight tripod, those are fine if you only want to use it for, let's say, photos, or quickly have like your setup on a tripod for a quick kind of filming, then those are fine. But if you want to use a slider, definitely go for a heavy duty tripod. Oh, I totally forgot to mention that they have feet. The slider comes with these really sturdy feet. They are made out of steel, like super sturdy. It's crazy. And you can basically use the slider on a flat surface by using this feet, and the tiny little legs here, or the foot or the feet here, it's adjustable, so you can actually adjust the angle of these feet. And then if in case the surface is not that even, but this is absolutely amazing because these legs are really wide compared to other sliders. Other sliders, especially motorized one, usually they have basically some rubber feet at the bottom of the corners, and that's pretty much it. But this one, you can actually swing them out all the way, like almost like a spider situation here, just like that. But if it's on a tripod and on the supporting rod, I will just close them. And I just can't close this one because of the my tripod arm. But this is another really cool design of the slider. The second thing I really like about the Zeapon Micro 3 slider is this motor right here. This entire slider is modular. Basically, they have two parts. This motor right here, you can see on this side of the slider, it's removable. So you have two thumb screws here. So after you release the thumb screws, you can literally take the motor off completely. As you can see, there is a kind of like a rosette kind of teeth going on here. And you don't really have to align it because they have like multiple pins to align the motor onto the slider, and you can use a thumb screw to tighten it just like that. When you take off the slider, this is when I highly recommend when you want to do a manual sliding motion. There is a mode where you can disengage or disable the motor. For me, I don't know why when I try to disengage it by pressing and holding the double arrow button at the top, it flashes, but for some reason I don't feel like the slider is disengaged from the motor. So I was kind of worried that I'll break the motor because it was still really tight. You can see that I have the slider moving quite smoothly when it's away from the motor completely. So this is good for if you want to do manual sliding motion where you probably don't mind doing the sliding motion yourself and you don't want to carry the motor, or the battery of the motor died, or the Sony NPF battery that they use for the motor, it's out of power, then you can definitely remove the motor and then start sliding it using your hand. And it's still really smooth because you can actually control or adjust how smooth it goes. 1 is basically the smoothest, the not as tight, and if you turn it all the way to 5, I believe it's gonna be super tight compared to 1. There is a lock feature here. If you want to travel with the slider, you can actually turn this knob and lock the slider, and you can of course release it when you want to use the slider. So keep that in mind. Make sure you release the lock before you use the motor, because I don't think the motor can detect the lock. The next reason why I really like the Micro 3 slider from Zeapon is because of the manual control. You can see all the buttons here. You can actually just turn on the slider just like that and control the slider using the buttons. You can probably hear the motor noise even when my lav mic is right here on my chest. I'll get closer. That's the noise the motor is gonna make when the slider is moving by the motor. Depends on the speed of the sliding motion, the noise is gonna go up and down. If you go like super fast, I believe if I click it once, it's gonna be at top speed. It's gonna get a little bit louder in the higher pitch. If I go to speed 1, which is the slowest one, it's not going to be as loud. Speed 1 has the quietest noise, but I still don't recommend recording audio with your onboard microphone on your camera because it will pick up that noise. It's really high pitched no matter how fast or slow the motor is moving the slider. So try not to record audio using anything close to this space right here. If you're a couple of feet away, it should be fine. If you use a microphone that is more directional, it's probably going to get rid of that noise anyway, so you're not going to hear it if you're recording audio externally. So try not to record audio here. As you can see before, I am able to control the speed of the slider by just single clicking the power button. You can see that I can't really see it on my monitor, but you should be able to see the lights, the 3 lights. I think this is the second speed and third, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is the high speed. If I press it one more time, the power button, it will go back to speed 1. So you can control the slider speed with 3 different levels by just using the control panel here, which is absolutely amazing. Another really cool thing is you can actually set AB points on this slider by using just the controls on the slider. With other motorized slider, most of them you have to use an app to set the AB point especially, and to set the slider into a loop mode, which is super annoying. I don't like using apps, especially when I'm on set and everything has to be quick, and I just don't like it unless I really need that precision. I really need that specific speed and loop kind of timing, then I will use the app to set the precise numbers. But here you can actually do this. Let me change the speed to maybe medium, so we're not gonna wait for that long. Let's say I want to set this as an A point. I can when the slider stopped at my A point, I can just double click onto the power button. You hear that beep, right? And then I can slide the slider. I can slide the slider to the B point and double click the power button again. Now 2 beeps. So that's A point with 1 beep, B point with 2 beeps. Now if I press onto one of the arrows and the power button together, it will go into loop mode. So it will go back to A point, B point, A point, B point at the speed that I set originally. So I can go press. It'll go back to A point and start looping. Just like that. If I think the speed is too fast, of course, I have the capability of just change the speed. Oh, that's going faster. If I tap it again, it will go back to speed number 1 with the same AB point. This is absolutely amazing because a lot of sliders, as I said, you need to use the app to do it. This one, you can do it on the slider itself. So in case if you don't have your phone around, if your phone that's out of battery, then yes, you can still do it with the slider control. You can stop the looping motion by simply clicking one of the arrows and the power button. It'll just stop. And if you want to continue again, just do it again. If you want to cancel the AB point, you can actually do it too. You can just press both arrows at the same time. It'll have a longer beep, and now the AB points are gone. In order to disengage the motor from the slider and set AB point manually, I don't know why you would want to do that. I don't know. But the instruction on Zeapon's website and also their YouTube video is to press and hold this double arrow button until it flashes. Is it flashing? Yeah, I think it's flashing, and you can slide the slider C. I don't know why. I don't know why mine is like super tight still. I really don't want to force it. But anyway, you can push the slider to A point, double click the power button, set it to A, slide to the B point, double click the power button, set B point, and then start looping. So it's basically the same thing as using the button to slide it back and forth to set the AB point. I don't know why they want to do it with the motor disengaged, but at least mine is not really disengaged. Anyway, that's a really, really handy feature using the Micro3 slider to set AB point and also set the loop and all the functions just by using the control on the slider. The last but not least point that I really like about the Zeapon Micro3 is the carrying case. It comes with a carrying case for the slider, for the rods, all together in one package, and an other case for the motor and a space for your NPF battery. That is really, really cool because other sliders, a lot of times they don't have a carrying case or they have like a bag, which is kind of interesting because this thing is really not fragile at all, but it does have a rubber cable in the middle. So a hard case will be much better than a bag. And also this with a battery, I hope that like people start giving you like a hard case just like Zeapon to carry the battery and the motor so you don't damage any part of your slider. So that's a really cool advantage of getting the Micro3 slider. Okay, now let's talk about why you want to use a camera slider so you know if you actually want to get one. And definitely consider getting the Micro3 because of the reasons that I just mentioned. The main reason why you want to get a camera slider is to add the motion of the sliding to your shot. Basically, when you watch movies or videos, if they are trying to get the audience to focus on something besides using leading lines, compositions, a push-in motion, it's really common for the audience to be drawn into the scene. So if you have a little push-in motion when you are filming, it makes the audience like they are getting closer into the scene. This is used really, really commonly in scenes where they want to add suspense, and especially horror movie or detective movies where they want to bring the audience into the scene and people get like super focused and they hold their breaths because you are getting closer. You're more curious about what's going to happen or what's going on in the scene. So this push in, it's really, really common. Another really common motion that they use a slider or dolly or any kind of tracks is dolly out or pull out. This is really cool when you want to reveal a scene. So basically when someone walks into the door and you want to show that the place that they walked into, like the environment, you want to slowly pull back out. That's a really common movement of camera using the slider or a dolly or a track. And another thing is sometimes they use this pull out method at the end of the movie, almost like, oh, okay, the movie is ending, so you're like sitting back and relaxed, so everything is like pulling out and it gets wider and wider in that scene. So pulling out, pushing in, really common, especially in horror and detective movies. And another really cool thing that you can do with a slider, especially in the sliders because of the supporting leg, is you can actually set it up so it's like almost completely vertical. Then you can actually set it up vertically, but it really depends on your tripod and your setup. But when you set it up vertically and you have your camera pointing still facing the front, you have this capability of pulling the camera up or down, especially when you are going up. A lot of times movies and videos, they use it to show a character, to reveal a character or show a character's emotion behind something. Maybe they're reading a book or reading something, and then the camera slowly pan up and show their face and their emotion. That is really common. So pulling the camera up, it's one thing that you can do with a slider. Of course, the other way, going down, it's also another way to show the difference in terms of perspective. Maybe you have something that to review lower in the scene, then that's a really common way to do it too. But I think I see the pulling up motion a lot more common than going down. So that's another thing. Of course, you can be way more creative. You can do like a slanted kind of sliding motion to show a different kind of emotion. Maybe it suits your compositions or the scene that you were showing. So that's really common. You can play around with it. You can go sideways. You don't have to go straight pull in, push in and pull out. You can go slanted, pointing this way as well. So it really depends on what you're trying to deliver emotionally, I would say, because it really helps emphasizing the emotion of the scene. But that's one way to use the slider, or any slider basically, not just product B-rolls, where a lot of YouTubers are probably just gonna tell you that it's really good for product B-rolls. Yes, it is. Yes, but it's not limited to those. To me, it's more about emphasizing the emotion in the scene if you want to film something with a story behind. Product B-rolls, super cool, definitely doable with a slider, but that's not the only thing you can do with a slider. Okay, now I'm going to quickly show you guys the app that you can use to connect to the Zeapon Micro3 Slider. The app is called Zeapon Lab. When you are in there for the first time, you will have to pair the slider to the app. But once you're in there, it's actually really simple. When you first get inside the app and it's connected to one of the products, I have only the slider, but if you have the pen tool head, it will connect to that as well. You just need to hit done, and then you will be brought to a page where you can set the speed of the slider, and you can slide it manually as well, just like that. And you can set A/B point. So it's super simple. Let's say I want this point right here to be my A point. I can just tap onto A, and you can see that the A letter lights up, and I can slide the slider to the B point and then tap on B. You can set A, B, C, D, E, F points, so you can go like to different spots, depends on how you want to do that scene. But A/B point is probably the most commonly used one, and then you can set the speed of the slider at below the A/B point. I highly recommend you to test which focal length should use what speed, because the longer the focal length, the faster you want the slider to be in order to see the sliding motion. Because if you use like a 100 mil lens, if you slide like the slider at 30%, you will barely see the frame changing. That's just the compression of the lens. If you're using a wide angle lens, let's say a 20mm lens, you can use a speed that is much slower and it will still be really dramatic. It's just like, you can try it at home. Like, you can start walking with a wider angle lens, like everything passed by super quickly compared to a telephoto lens, which is like gonna be super slow. So that's why test the focal length with different speed before you start recording. That's really, really important. I learned that the hard way. Anyway, you can use the app to loop the motion. Of course, you can just tap onto the play button and then start going between A/B points, but if you tap onto the repeat looping icon, just like a music kind of player, you can tap onto play and it will go from A point to B point, A point to B point, just like that. And let me try to record this to show you guys how it looks like. By the way, this is not a video camera. This is my Fujifilm X Pro 2, but it records really nice video. So I'm just gonna let it record for a little bit to show you guys how smooth the motion is. The speed that I have set up is at 30%. I think this is really good for this focal length. Don't worry about the autofocusing. This is not a video camera, as I said before, but it is doing a great job when it comes to how smooth the motion is. I'm gonna stop this. And if you want to reset the A/B point, there is a reset recycle kind of button at the top right. You just tap onto that and A/B point will be canceled. I think the app is really easy to use and really, really intuitive. I really enjoy using it. That's it. Those are the things that we like about the Micro 3 slider from Zeapon. The one that we got is the E700, and that's the middle length of all the models that they have. They have 3 different models. They have E500, the shorter one, and then an E1000, which is a longer one. So definitely check out their website for more information about how wide of a slider you want. We prefer the middle one because it's probably the most versatile one and can travel way longer than the actual slider length, as you saw in the video. So definitely go to the website, especially to check out the payloads and information about the specs and everything. We don't want to make this video too technical, talking about just the specs. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let us know if you have any questions in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.